I had never heard this before because it was actually a coach that coaches me. We were talking about, the idea of perfectionism and again, am I ready? Am I a perfectionist? And really perfectionists are just procrastinators that are fearful of putting something out there because it's not perfect. And if you were a true perfectionist, you would put that out there, get feedback, get it back, retool it, and put it out there again. You would want to have that interaction of back and forth. And when I think I'm not ready to get that feedback, I need to take a look at that.
Welcome to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge, the podcast where Christine says fear, questions everything, and takes bold action. Christine Spratley is a former professional boxer, nanny, and 29-plus year corporate warrior turned founder of HBIC Advisors, where she is a public speaker and coach. She's been saying fear her whole life, many times without even realizing it. So tune in, spread the word, and get ready, because this isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell.
Hey, bitches! How are my badass women out there and my few courageous men that are listening to this podcast? Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're listening. Thank you, and welcome back to Fuck Fear with myself, Christine Spratley, living like an HBIC. We are going to today take a little bit of the previous podcast and explore it a little bit further. And what I'm going to do is I talk about fuck fear and what that means and how living like an HBIC is really about accountability, self-accountability. And in order to do that, a lot of times you have to take action. And you have to say fuck fear to look at yourself, and then you have to say it to take action. Usually I say it right before I jump and do something. And sometimes I say it with a deep breath and go, oh, here I go. Or sometimes it's, literally just kicking the door open and walking through it. I remember when I was a kid and I lived in a town, or I actually grew up on a farm, and we used to go swimming in Dunlap, Iowa in the pool. And they had the high dive, and it was a big deal to be able to swim in the deep end. And I remember getting up to the high dive and just being like, okay, I'm here. Now what do? I got to jump off. And I'll just never forget that feeling of, kind of walking out to the edge and then walking back. And the whole time you're walking back, it's not like you can climb down the ladder. So you got to just run and jump and go. And that's kind of sometimes what you do. So today, about fuck fear, we're going to look at and myth bust the idea of readiness. And really, what I want you to walk away with is a defiant feeling about not feeling ready. Now, granted, if you're a surgeon, come on, we want you to be ready, all right? I mean, we want you to be on your toes, but we're talking life changes here. We're talking the times that but I'm just not ready to do that just yet, or I just don't have enough time, or I'm just not certain. And those kind of conversations in our head. And that's when, for me anyway, the longer I wait to do it, the less likely I am to do it. And the more stuck, we talked about this the other day, the more stuck I become. And so I try to really think about what am I looking at and saying, I don't know, I'm really not ready. So kind of as you're going through this, think about one or two things in your life where you've said recently in passing conversation, I'm just not ready for that. Just not ready for that. And left it there and never went back and picked it up.
So Christine, can you think of a time when you told yourself, I'm not ready for this, but you chose to do it anyway?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll start. A big one, a really big one was when I left home and ran away. And this is going to come to a shock to people that know me because I don't talk about this much. They don't know a lot about my getting into where I came from and stuff. But I spoke about this at my at an event, Women in Manufacturing's event, and we talked about it. And I said, I remember what happened was, I just kind of paused for a second because it's kind of going back. And I had gotten sober. And one of the things about my life is I come from a family, a very large family, but a family of abuse. And so when I got sober, people in AA were like, yeah, families are usually screwed up. You need to go to counseling, like go get your shit right. And I wanted to do that. And my parents did not want me to do that. And so things got really weird. And I got a call to the principal's office, Mr. Rawlings' office. And I didn't think I was in trouble anymore because I was sober. So I trod in there, and it had been kind of a weird couple of days because I had a sister that I had always talked to, and she was in sobriety, and I couldn't get a hold of her. And, for those that are young that are listening, we didn't have phones like we do now, So I just couldn't get a hold of her. She wasn't calling, and mom and dad said she wasn't calling, and there was a lot of craziness going on in my life, in our family. I get into the office, and he pulls me into his office, and he gives me the phone, and he hands me the phone, and I take it, and it's my sister on the phone, and she says, "Hey, are you sober? Are you drinking?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Mom and Dad say you are, and they're getting ready to put you back into the mental hospital, a psych ward." And that's where I went before I got sober a year earlier. And I remember, Joe, hearing that and putting my, the phone here and just putting my back against the wall and sliding down that wall. And she says, "We got to get you out of there." And that was on a Wednesday. And so kind of going back to was I ready? How do you get ready for that? So I literally, I wasn't ready. But I knew I had to do it. And so I did. On Saturday morning, my boyfriend at the time took me and a buddy. I had stayed at a girlfriend's house overnight, and he took me and a buddy, and we cut donuts in the high school parking lot for the one last time. And they put me on a plane, and I remember crying the whole way to Florida, because that's where I flew to meet my other sister, and having no idea what I was getting into, but knowing that there was no way of going back. So yeah, there's been that time. And what's interesting is that you have those moments, and those are pretty dramatic, and those are pretty impactful. But those moments can be just as impactful as other moments where I've had to say, kind of the fuck fear, and I'm not ready for this. And I remember one time, it was early in my economic development, land development lobbying work that I did. And I was in a meeting I was getting ready to go into a meeting. And I was working for King White and Site Selection Group. And shout out to my brothers down there. They're awesome. And I was in Georgia. We had a meeting with some state representatives, legislature people, I don't know, Congress, whatever. And I just remember going, they were all in there. And I was the young female, I had my heels and my briefcase and boop, 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 boop. And I was so nervous because it was a Halliburton meeting. And that was back in the day where Halliburton is not, it's oil money, And I just remember being so nervous. And this woman that was basically the gatekeeper of the legislature gentleman or the representative said to me, she gave me a little thing, and she says, "You need this." And it was a card holder. And it said, and I kept it for a long time, I may still have it. And it said, "Put your big girl panties on and deal with it." It said, "I think you need this. Now go in there and act like you know what you're doing." And so, yeah, there have been many times. And when I first wrote this, and I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, when did I have to do it? When was I forced to do it? But it was really when I chose to do that, because each time I didn't have to. I mean, I knew I needed to, but I didn't have to. And I think that's important for women to know as we go through this, is that when we do something that we're not ready for and we do it anyway, that's a choice that we make. And there's a lot of freedom that comes from that, because we can choose not to do it. But then there's the reward of, hey, we chose to do this. We chose to step in the ring, literally sometimes for me, and we did it. And we need to give ourselves our propers on that. And we need to acknowledge that. It may not be a big shout out, but maybe for me, it's Fat Boy ice cream sandwiches at night. I celebrate those times when I'm not ready. But let's get back to this, the concept of readiness. And I think there's this idea of, the lies that I tell myself, around what is being ready and what is, like, I can't do this until I'm ready. And that, to me, the lie really is about to keep me comfortable and to keep me in a safe space, which is all about fear. Getting out of my comfort zone, getting out of where I don't know what's out there, and I don't have control of that. And I love to talk about control, because control to me is an illusion when I really think about it. I was driving here today, and I always know where I'm at kind of by how I talk to others on the highway. And I was talking some shit today.
So were you on 540?
No, I was on 440, and just bear with me. Anybody, if you're driving in the left-hand lane and there is anybody behind you, get your ass over. And if you have a minivan and are not going 60, at least get your butt over. I mean, come on. But by the time I passed them, I had changed my tone, and I didn't flip anybody off, but we were having some conversations. But so the concept of control is kind of funny. But I think that is what we try to do, or that's what I try to do, is I try to prevent myself from being in a situation where I am fearful of something not being okay and me having to deal with that. And ladies, and I really want you to think about, if we really take a look at the facts and go to the real of where you are in your life, most of you, I'm sure most all of you, if not all of you, we've had your first period. I don't think we were ready for that. I know I wasn't. I remember cramps, and I was not ready for those things. I remember not being ready for my first job. I mean, I didn't know. I mean, she hired me as a runner, and she was a land development lobbyist, and I couldn't tell a building plan from a site plan. I worked for Crocker Consulting, Sarah Crocker, and she was known. Red hair, high heels, vamp red lipstick, and was just a killer out there. And if she told you to go get something, a permit, or go down to the city, she'd go down to the city and get this. You went down and you got it. And you feared coming back without it. Like, you feared that. And so I wasn't ready, but I had no clue what I was getting into, thank goodness. But women, what were you not ready for? Were you ready for your first date? Were you ready for that first breakup? Were you ready for your first roommate? Were you ready for your first kid? I can tell you, I was not ready for being a stepmom, even though I thought I was. I remember driving back. We used to go and do drop off and pick up. And I remember driving back one night, and they had been on a basketball event. And basically, it was when they were younger, and they just ran around and ate candy all night. And then we drove from Wilmington to Raleigh. And I remember, just kind of, trying to figure out what do I do? How do I, be with these young little kids? And I'm not their mom, and I remember Madison threw up, and I always used to make them popcorn and put them in baggies, big baggies. And so I emptied, I knew she was getting, because you could, that sound. And so my husband pulled over, and I jumped out. I emptied the bags, and sure enough, just about that time, she was projectile vomiting into the bag, slam dunk there, girl. And she just started crying, and she was like, I want my mommy. You're not my mommy. I want my mommy. And I just didn't know what to do. So yeah, I wasn't ready. I wasn't her mom at that point in time. David and I weren't married or anything. But again, that was a whole nother thing. I can tell you now, I was not ready at like 45 to start getting zits and hot flashes. I had read about menopause. I had heard about it. I was not ready for that shit. And there are days when I am still not ready for it, So, but I think there's that saying, what is it? You've survived 100% of everything that you've gone through so far. So if you really think about it, you have made it. Like I'm not saying perfect, but we've done it. So the myth that you have to be ready is different from to begin. And I think that's the key thing here, is going from I'm not ready to I'll start. I do this in coaching a lot with my clients, is we just say, well, we'll just start. We'll take it, and you can always stop. You can always decide to go back or change your mind. And sometimes we do. And I think that is the beauty too. When I was reading Atomic Habits, which is another great book I love, it says you are the habits you become what you are, your habits. And so it's like you just start small and you just do. But because me, of course, I want to do 100 things. I want to do it, every day for the next 3 months. And it's like, okay, let's dial that back. But I can always start. I want to be a starter. Everybody says don't be a quitter. I want to be a starter. I'm going to choose today to start doing this. And I like the quote from Marcus Aurelius, and I practice Stoicism, and you'll hear more probably about that. But that's kind of where I get my kind of guidance, not guidance, but kind of vision of how to live and thought. And it said, he says this quote, you could be good today. Instead, you choose tomorrow. And I like that because I could choose to take action today. I could actually do something different. I can't tell you how long I thought about doing this podcast, but I thought about it pretty long. And now I'm finally doing it and taking action and reaping how that work, the benefits of showing up. But
why do you think that is for most people, that we convince ourselves that we have to be ready before we start something?
Well, again, I think part of it is the fear of failure. That control of saying, okay, I will get all these so then I can get this. I will do these things and be ready so then I will have success, because I can't have failure. Or failure isn't success. And I think that's a shift in mindset is my failure really failure? Or is it just success in work, in progress? I know for me, I am more confident when I'm taking action. Even if I am failing, I am still more confident because I'm in the habit of doing it. So if I am a lack of self-trust or a lack of self-belief, which again, this is not therapy, but if you have that or weren't nurtured with that, you're not going to know. And so it's going to be really scary to start things that you could fail. The lion looks bigger when you don't see him behind the door. But when you're standing there face to face and you go, oh, this is what it is. It sounds bigger. But then when you open it up and you're like, oh. And so that, I think, is part of why we don't tell ourselves, or why we tell ourselves to wait, be ready. Well, because then I can control this and then I'll have a positive outcome.
Your event doesn't just need a host, it needs a ringmaster of energy. Christine Spratley reads the room and keeps the momentum rolling like a damn orchestra conductor. With insight, humor, and a splash of mischief, she'll make sure your event isn't just organized, it's electric. After Christine takes the stage, your audience will be fully present, fired up, and not scrolling on their phones. Book her now at christinespratley.com.
I really think it's a reframing. And so I think part of it for me is I don't need to be ready. I need to be willing to start. I need to say, readiness is an illusion. Because again, how many times have we thought we were ready for something?
Yeah. Every time I feel super prepared for something, it doesn't go well. And every time I feel like I'm winging it and I'm not ready, I'm like, oh, nailed it.
Exactly. And I think it's kind of like we were talking before about, being prepared and what you can do and not be too scripted. And it's, and the times that I thought I was going to nail something and is when I am so stuck to, it has to be this way. And life is never that way. Life, for me anyway, I don't know, maybe y'all's life is very different. And this is probably a very boring podcast for you. But my life has always been, what? I call it the Scooby-Doo moments. Where did that, I remember showing up, this is a true story, with a client, and this is later on in my career, and with a governor and a secretary of commerce who were Democrat. Okay? It's really important when you're bringing in a client that they understand the political landscape, especially when that client would like some incentives or money or grants or things like that. And they without telling me, they did a presentation, 7-minute presentation of the greatness of a Republican that was literally fighting this sitting governor. And I was so ready for this meeting, and it went off the rails and down to and I, like you said, I ended up pivoting and having to go wing it. But again, I was prepared, but I was prepared for something else, not for what happened. And I can get prepared, but I need to be prepared also for what I think is going to happen, but also give enough grace in there for what may actually happen. And sometimes what actually happens is so much better than what we prepare for. So I think the confidence you get is by doing it, even when you're failing, because you get in this rhythm of, I've been knocked down. Boxing's a great example. You get bounced around, and after a while you go, boom, I got hit. Oh, I know what that's like. Okay, now I can pivot and move, and things slow down. But it's not about failing at that point in time. And that's what I think is really great. Even in business, if we really think about business strategy, you hear that ready, aim, fire. It's kind of like ready, fire, aim. They put it out there, they launch it, they get as much feedback back, and then they redo it and retool and go again and put it out, because it's it's always innovation. So innovation by nature means that it was wrong to begin with. You're going to improve it. You're going to make it better. So that means you're failing, right? So when are you ready? At a certain point, you just put it out there and go, okay, this is as good as it's going to get. That's why I was told this once about perfectionists, and I had never heard this before, because it was actually a coach that coaches me. We were talking about, the idea of perfectionism, and again, am I ready? Am I a perfectionist? And really, perfectionists are just procrastinators that are fearful of putting something out there because it's not perfect. And if you were a true perfectionist, you would put that out there, get feedback, get it back, retool it, and put it out there again. You would want to have that interaction of back and forth. And when I think I'm not ready to get that feedback, I need to take a look at that. Because is it really that important that I hold on and be ready? Or am I just not wanting to put it out there and maybe fail, or maybe it not be perfect, or maybe not control the situation. One thing I'd like my listeners to think about is if you would have waited. We talked about think about things that you weren't ready for, but that you did. If you would have waited and didn't do them, what would have you missed out on? Not just the lesson, but what would have you missed out on? Because I think that's really on the other side of that is what do we miss out by waiting? I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for this. What do we miss out? And again, going back to Marcus Aurelius is, you can be good today. What am I missing out on today because I'm choosing tomorrow to take action? And I don't know. For me, that's something that I have to ask myself a lot. But again, it's successful people, whether it be in their personal lives, professional lives, their spiritualness, their physicalness. It's about reiteration and improvement. And, it's about getting there and doing it and taking the action. I've learned some of the best ways to do something by doing them not ready. So let me see, where we're at now. I love sports. And so I use a lot of sports kind of mentality when I think of fuck fear. And ready or not, here I come. And, you prepare and you prepare and you prepare. But every match that you play, every game that you play, every boxing match that I boxed, I prepared. But until the bell rings, you don't know. You don't know how your body's going to be. And so, again, you have to participate in order to know if you're ready. That's the other thing. Sometimes I wonder, because some people say I'm not ready for certain things. And then others will be like, oh, yeah, you are. And how do we know that if I'm not there doing it? But I love that idea of sports. You train and you do, but you always, and they always say you want the guy or the girl, Caitlin Clark from Iowa, man. Took us a long time to have one, but we got one. And, is she ready? Was she ready? All this noise about that. But we could talk all that. We could listen to all that. But until it's on the court and you see it, so if she would have waited, when do we get to see it? And none of us like the hype around any sporting event. We all are ready for it. By the time the Super Bowl rolls around, we're like done with it. Remember back in the day, Joe, where they'd have the big fights where everybody you'd order the fight and you'd go over to someone's house. I don't know if you did, but we did. You'd order the fight and you'd go over to someone's house and watch the big heavyweight fight.
Sure.
It's like you were done. You were done with the weigh-in and they'd tussle each other. And you'd want to literally just watch.
Yeah. The Tyson and the YouTuber fight that just happened.
Yeah.
Like, I was trying to stay up for it, and Rosie Perez, like, at 10:30 was like, we probably got another 3 hours for the fight, and I was like, click. I'm turning that off.
I'm ready already. and that's kind of like it. And I just encourage my listeners to just get out there. Find whatever stage you want, big or small, and just start. Start something. Be a starter. Step onto the court. And do it. Because that's where you know if you're ready or not.
So thinking back, the first time you went into the boxing ring, what was going through your mind? Did you feel ready?
I'll be honest. When I first stepped into the boxing ring for professionally, I was so ready to get this shit on the road, we got to do something, because I'd been waiting and I'd been training. And again, it's like, you're ready, but are you ready? I don't know. I thought I was scared, but I wasn't scared of getting hurt as much as just, I had all this energy. What I've realized now is, for me, I don't have fear and emotion are just energies. They're different energy levels for me and different types of energy. And so, no, I was ready. I mean, my trainer told me I was ready. Richard Lord from Richard Lord's boxing gym had this thing where you had to run the steps at the University of Texas Stadium under a certain time for you to be able to fight. That was his level of, conditioning that you were like, okay, you can handle doing 3-minute rounds and blah, 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 blah. And so I was ready. I don't know if he thought I was really ready. Because part of my background is I come from abuse. So I'm like, I remember when we first started boxing and he said, you want to spar? And I said, you pop me. It's different when you hit the mitts and then no one hits you back. It's different when they hit you back. And I remember telling him, I said, listen, you hit me and I flip out, you stop. And so you're never quite sure. I will tell you this, I do have my second fight. I was ready for that fight. I remember because I'd won my first fight, my second fight I was ready, and I don't remember anything past the second round. And I remember being back at his parents' house. We got done, went back to his parents' house. They was in Dallas. It was a Dallas fight. And I remember the end of the second round, and I remember watching the VCR going, there's a third round? And there's literally watching myself because I don't remember that. And so, I was ready for that fight. I ended up losing that fight, but I was ready for that fight. So
is that like that? What's that Mike Tyson quote? Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. Is that?
Everybody's got a plan too. And that's the thing. Get in there, get in the ring, get hit, and then pivot and move. And don't put it off. If it's gonna be bad, let's get it on. Let's go and get it mixed up and go do it. And then you learn.
And then maybe don't go fight a YouTuber in your 60s.
Maybe not. Maybe go start something else. That's the beauty about it, though, is that we get to participate. And if I'm sitting here, the illusion of being ready, and typically I make that illusion and I make all this criteria up in a vacuum of myself or some high standard that I have of somebody else. And it's not really based on reality when it comes to changing my life, taking action, and moving forward. And so I really think if you sit there and you go, all right, what were things that I thought I was ready for? And what curveballs hit me? Okay, I survived those just as much as I survived when I didn't think I was ready. And I think that's the beauty of that. And so, ladies, when it comes to saying fuck fear, it's not that you don't respect the fear. It's not you go, oh, and stuff it in this little box, because that's not what we're talking about. What I'm talking about is you go, oh, yeah, I got some stuff at risk here. Starting my company was very risky for me. Being out here, talking out loud in public, I call it living out loud in public, is very different format for me. And, because I don't have a Ernst & Young or Deloitte or this industry to stand behind. These are my thoughts. These are my experiences. And it may or may not resonate. So yeah, there's a lot. Are you ever ready for that? Are you ever ready to fail? I'm not sure I'm ready, but I know how to pick myself back up again. And I think that I've learned from failing. And that is what's great is there's a certain amount, when I sit down, there's a certain amount of, man, I don't want to have to work 5 jobs and do all that again. But if I fail and I don't go back to corporate, I'm willing to do that. And I think that's what's fun. Because I get to sit here and have these great conversations with you and my bitches. And just everything about that is so wonderful. To have something new to do, to tell somebody the game you're playing, what you're doing, and not sitting on the sidelines. I don't think anybody ever wants to be a bench warmer. not the whole entire game. And I know I haven't. So again, think about when you say I'm not ready. Maybe you need another girl, or a husband or a friend to kind of say, hey, I'm right here. I've got you, but you're ready. Doing it scared is still doing it. You get credit for that. And that's when it's courageous. When I'm not scared and I'm out there doing stuff I've been doing my whole day, my whole life, that doesn't take a lot. But when I'm doing new things or exploring new areas, that is courageous. And I get scared to do that and I do it anyway. I want to meet those people. I want to know those women. I want to follow those leaders. And I was talking to someone the other day, and we were laughing about running from people who say they've never been scared or that they've never failed. And I said, yeah, I don't trust those people, because either they've never put themselves out far enough, or they've been in denial that they've failed. And either one, I don't want that. And so today I'm going to be a starter. And I encourage all my listeners to be a starter. I really do. Just start something small, something new. And you're ready. You're enough. You're enough to start. You may need to be more to finish, but you're enough to start. So we're winding down. Got homework to do. This is my challenge. Make a list of things that you weren't ready for, but you did anyway, and you killed it. Or you walked away with something that you didn't know you were going to get that you just treasure. 2, make a list of something you thought you were ready for, and you did the epic nosedive, belly flop. And 3, make a list of things that you're saying you're not ready to do. Just write them down, put them down on paper. And then from that list, choose one that you want to start. And then tell someone that you're going to start it. You don't have to put a time. I can turn coach on you. You don't have to put a time or a date, but just tell someone, put that out there that you're going to start it. Tell a friend. I literally told a friend today, I said, next time you see me, ask me if I made an appointment for my hormone replacement doctor. And so again, put it out there. Start something that you've been putting off. Ladies, gentlemen, I thank you. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. And Tubbs, and until next time, we'll see you later.
Thanks for tuning in to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, tell her what topics you want to hear, and share this episode with someone who could use a pantry full of boldness in their life. Remember, life isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell. So show up, take action, and keep saying fear.